Today we're going to be looking at 30, 60, 90 triangle. Alright, so as you do now, I want you to try to find the value of h. Here we have a right triangle, and the measure of this angle here is 60 degrees. Here, with this marking, you can see that this must be 90-degree angle. Now, where the horizontal line segment here is the 2, and hypotenuse is equal to 4. Now, in this case, can you find the value of h? Alright, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time, and we'll continue together. Alright, great. So, in order for us to find the value of h, just like what we have done earlier, what we can do is we can do the Pythagorean theorem. Here, we have 2 square plus h square is equal to, you see, since the 4 is the hypotenuse, according to the Pythagorean theorem, we get to realize that 4 has to be by itself on the other side of the equation. And here we have, this becomes 4 plus h squared, that's equal to 16. By subtracting 4, h squared will be equal to 12, where h now becomes square root of 12. Now, square root of 12 here, it means that this is 2 square root of 3 after simplifying it. Alright, great. So we realize that this is equal to 2 radical 3. Then, in fact, let us try to look into this question for a second a little bit more. Given that this angle is 60, you see, one thing that we get to realize is this. If you copy this angle, triangle, and if I simply flip it the other way around and put them together, you'll realize that we have, that's right, we have an equilateral triangle. In fact, the 30, 60, 90 triangle is the half of the equilateral triangle. Alright, then given this, why don't I try to give you another question, and we'll try to look into that together. Alright, so next question here, we have an equilateral triangle. Let's call this one as A, B, and C, and D is the point right in the middle. Now, so what if you had to mention that in an equilateral triangle ABC, each side, let us say, is equal to 6. Now, BD is an altitude, and I'm asking, can you find the value of h? Now, how are we going to do it? In fact, since this is an equilateral triangle, we get to realize that line segment AC is also equal to 6. But here, you see the altitude in an equilateral triangle also works as a median, meaning divides the base into 2 equal parts, which makes each component as 3. Now, knowing that, can we find the value of h? Yes, we can. So here we have 3 squared plus h squared must be equal to 6 squared. Here we have 9 plus h squared must be equal to 36. Then h squared must be equal to 27. And where h is equal to square root of 27. But when you simplify this one, this becomes 3 square root of 3. Alright. Wait a minute, when you look into the earlier question and this question, happen to see some pattern? Alright, then try to see what's actually happening while we look into the next question. So, from a 30, 60, 90 triangle, we can assume that this angle is 90, and this angle must be 30 degrees. And we're going to say opposite of 30-degree angle is x. But as we mentioned earlier, if we have two of these triangles, it will become an equilateral triangle. So we know that this side must be 2x. Oops. One thing which we need to figure out is the other line segment opposite of 60-degree angle. So why don't we call this one as maybe y for now? And here we have x squared plus y squared must be equal to 2x entire thing squared. And what do we realize? Here we have x squared plus y squared must be equal to 4x squared. As you're subtracting x squared from each side, we get to realize the y squared must be 3x squared. How are we going to get rid of the square? Yes, by taking the square root on both sides, which will be equal to x square root of 3. That's right. Y, in fact, will become x square root of 3. Now, this becomes another ratio. In 30, 60, 90 triangle, our ratios are x right equal to 3, and 2x. Now, let us look at a couple questions and then see if we can apply, how we can apply these ratios. Then, my first question will be this. I'm going to have an equilateral triangle. Let us say this is A, B, C. So in an equilateral triangle, ABC, equilateral triangle ABC, we realize that AB must be equal to, let us say, 10. I could ask, find the length of an altitude. Now, then what we have to do is draw an altitude first. Alright, when you draw an altitude, what's going to be happening? Let's fill out the rest of them. Since AB was equal to 10, we get to realize that this must be equal to 5. And knowing that, since it's an altitude, it has to be 90-degree angle. So this is equal to 60 right here, this measure of the angle B, which makes this one to be 30. Now, if you remember the ratio, you see the location are very, very important. Opposite of 60-degree angle was the x square root of 3. And opposite of 30-degree angle was x, and opposite of 90-degree angle is 2x. You see, by comparison, you get to realize that 10 must be corresponding to 2x, because both of them are hypotenuses. And then x must be corresponding to 5. So the first thing which we can do is that 10 must be equal to 2x. And we realize that x must be equal to 5 by dividing by 2 on each side, which we can confirm from another line segment. Here, once again, we realize the value of x is 5. Then knowing that this line segment opposite of 60-degree angle is our altitude, then since x equals 5, our altitude must be 5 square root of 3. Therefore, this becomes our answer. Alright, but what I can do is this. For the next question, I can give you about a very similar question where switch a couple of things around, such as this. Now, this time, in an equilateral triangle, let me call this one as A, B, C, and D. In equilateral triangle, ABC, A, D is a median. In case of an equilateral triangle, they all represent the same line segment. Now, if AD, let us say is equal to 6. Before we realized the length of one side was equal to 6, but in this case, AD, the altitude, is equal to 6. My question is find the perimeter of the triangle. ABC. So I'm looking for perimeter of the entire triangle. Since since AD is equal to 6, we need to realize that, wait a minute, what is 6 opposite of? If you remember the ratio, opposite of 60 must be equal to square root of 3, x square root of 3. In fact, that becomes our first equation which we can work with. Then here we have x square root of 3 is equal to 6. Then what are we going to do? Divide by square root of 3. Then you will realize that x is simply left with 6 over square root of 3. Now, but in this case, you can multiply top and bottom by square root of 3. And you get to realize that 6 square root of 3 over 3. When 3 cancels out, our final answer becomes 2 square root of 3. That is the length of one. That is the value of x. Since this is a x radical 3, value of x would have been from here to here. dB or CA, they will be equal values. So here we have 2 square root of 3. But since the altitude is also the median, we get to realize that this is also 2 square root of 3. That means length of one side becomes 4 square root of 3. But since we're looking for perimeter, that means we need to combine all three of them. So 4 square root of 3 times 3 must be our perimeter. Which our final answer becomes 12 square root of 3. All right, very nice. Then let us look at a couple more questions, and then we're going to move on to another lesson. So, excuse me, my next question would have been something similar to that. Now, if length of one side is equal to s, in an equilateral triangle, find the area of the given equilateral triangle. Now, what's going to be happening? If this side is equal to s, oh, that's right, in order for us to find the area of the triangle, we need to find the base and height. Yes, base will be equal to s. What would be our height? We can actually figure that out right here. Now, what would be the height? If you think about this one, since this is still 30, 60, 90 triangle, given that this is s, where this is equal to 2x, you see, and this portion will be equal to x radical 3. That is our height. Then, since s will be equal to 2x, by dividing it by 2, we get to realize that x must be equal to s over 2. Now, since we know the value of x, so this must be equal to s over 2 square root of 3. That will be our new height. And while this one is the base. Now area will become 1/2 base, which will be s, times the height, which is s square root of 3 over 2. Now, then when you combine them together, you will realize that we have s squared radical 3 on top. Divided by 2 times 2 becomes 4. So that becomes the area of an equilateral triangle. I strongly recommend you guys to memorize this one. Alright, And knowing that, let me try to get you another question. And now, I'll say each side is equal to 5. What is the area of the triangle? That means area formula, which we just have talked about just earlier slide. It's in fact side squared times square root of 3 over 4. What is the side? Side is the 5, so we end up getting 5 squared radical 3 over 4, which is equal to 25 square root of 3 over 4. That becomes our answer. All right, so we're going to stop here, and then I'm going to put more questions in practice section. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.